Good morning, friends. Thanks for being here this morning. This is Journey Home Meditation. I'm Michael, and this is the morning sit. We're going to share some breath work, a little meditation, and some contemplation this morning. I'm happy to be here. Yeah. So something I've been thinking about a bit lately, the last couple of days actually, more so than, well, at any rate, yeah, I've been thinking about this lately. Insecurity. Like, what it means to feel insecure, what insecurity does as a motivator in our lives, and the ways in which our insecurity is able to be identified, and what we can do with our insecurities, right? So this came up for me because yesterday morning, my youngest son and I were having a discussion that turned into an argument over. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it's over, but it's so trivial that it really serves the point that I want to make. Is that the argument was over electronic music versus traditional music played on instruments, by hand. And the argument, oddly enough, was not about the validity of either one, but it doesn't really matter what the argument was. The argument came into place because of insecurity. And I didn't recognize it so much until later, but it really helped me to understand how defensiveness is the most glaring symptom of insecurity. How the same way I can use my breath to figure out what might be happening under the surface in my body, right? I can listen to the breath, and the breath can be giving me signals as to what's happening on a spiritual level, psycho-spiritual level in my body. For instance, if I'm finding myself breathing through the mouth and into the chest and in shorter, more shallow breaths, oftentimes there's a low level anxiety or even a high level anxiety. But if I had a high level anxiety, I would be aware that I had anxiety. But there might be some anxiety, some anxiousness inside of my body, some nervous tension that I am dissociating from, because that's one of the coping mechanisms and tools that I have gotten really good at utilizing, is the ability to dissociate from the feelings of my body. And so, not knowing that I am feeling this anxiety, that anxiety will be informing my decisions, right? It'll be flavoring the conversation. It'll be present with me in any interaction that I have. And if I don't recognize that I am the one experiencing anxiety, I may start to believe that other people are being obtuse or harsh, or maybe they're being overly critical in my mind. And when somebody's saying something, I may take it and be like, wow, you're being extremely critical of me. And then I become defensive. But if I am aware that I am experiencing anxiety, then I can understand, oh, I am going to be hypersensitive to tone and to content, um, because my body is on edge. So I am feeling quite open and sensitive and vulnerable in a way that I don't appreciate about my body, that I haven't figured out how to come into healthy relationship with. And I can recognize like that this interaction is the feelings that I'm having about it are most likely stemming from that part of my body. My body is already feeling on edge. But I may be unaware of that entirely because of my ability to dissociate. So using the breath, I can figure out what might be underneath the surface just by feeling the way that I breathe. And the same goes, there's a lot of little signals that the breath can send us. If I'm holding my breath more, or I am not breathing out with an entirely full release of breath, I may be having a hard time letting go of something. There might be a stuck emotion or a, a, a thought, a recurring thought, or a belief that I'm holding on to about a situation, a person, or um, a fear that I may have that I am not letting go of. So I'm holding my breath, I'm holding it in, holding it back. And it could be that I have something that I need to communicate that I'm afraid to say, or something that I'm not even aware that is feeling stuck. Because again, my ability to dissociate. Dissociation is a really big component in my life and my experience for not understanding the part that I'm playing in the conversation. It also leads me to have some feelings of low self value in my relationships or my situations because I don't recognize that I'm a part of it. Right? I dissociate from my body, so I dissociate from a lot of the signals and things that I'm receiving. And it's taken work to get through that in my life. Um, but this is all insecurity, right? This comes to a head and is named insecurity. I feel insecure about myself because I don't have a relationship with myself. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily how I feel in this moment, but this is when I feel insecure. It's when I'm lacking an ability to closely relate to my own self. And this came up in this argument for me as a feeling after the fact because I recognized that my defensiveness about a stance that I have was actually not about the thing at all. It's not about the thing. That's the pretext, right? The defensiveness is about an internal feeling of lack or of not being seen or not being understood, right? And so I get defensive. I think that we all do. This is what an argument is. It's two people being defensive, right? But I recognized that defensiveness is like a neon light for insecurity. And one of the issues with that is insecurity in our culture has been punished. We've weaponized the culture against our insecurities. So especially I think if you embody, if you're a cis man from a young age, you are taught that you are supposed to be the confident one, the strong one, the vocal one. You don't doubt yourself and all of these ideas about who you should be that's kind of trained into you as children. And you're supposed to adopt this as part of your identity. And that just leads to further and further dissociation and separation and lack of relationship with ourselves. So the insecurity actually becomes much larger. The more that we demonize insecurity, the more that we push it into the shadow, the stronger it actually becomes. But insecurity can be an okay thing, right? We all experience it. It's just a matter of whether or not we can have compassion for it and understand that that insecurity is the voice of need. There's a need underneath it. And we don't necessarily have the language to communicate the need. We don't even necessarily know what the need is. It's hard to know what the need is, especially when you don't even know what the symptom is, right? It's hard to recognize your insecurity because it can come forth as absolute overconfidence, and it can come out as, credentialed knowledge and all of these things, like the levels to which we have successfully masked our needs, our emotional needs, and our social needs in this culture is astounding. And I've been thinking about the insecurity one because it's also, it's used pejoratively. Oh, you're so insecure. Oh, he's so insecure. This has been said to me. People get angry when I have an experience of insecurity. If I'm feeling insecure, people get angry at me about it. Oh, I can't believe you're so insecure. Well, I'm not the Easter Bunny, so I don't know why you have to believe in it, but it's a reality. And it may be confusing when somebody who is articulate and somewhat confident in some ways has insecurities in other ways. That may be confusing to you. Maybe people get upset with each other because we have expectations about how someone must feel on the inside. And I'm not sure exactly. I haven't quite sussed out what it is that people get upset about other people's insecurities. But I'm pretty open about it. I'm pretty open that, yeah, I experience insecurity. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I necessarily weaponize the insecurity, but sometimes I do. And usually a weaponized emotion is the one that we don't know how to feel, right? When I don't know what to do with a feeling in my body, I might weaponize it. Either I'll ignore it or I'll weaponize it if I'm scared of it, because I don't want to be seen in that way. I don't want to be perceived in that way. I don't want to see myself in that way. So it all of a sudden becomes pointy and sharp, and pointy, sharp things make good weapons. And so this is something I've been able to do some work on the last couple of days, like really sitting and meditating upon it and trying to find the feeling underneath the thought. What is the feeling of not being heard? Well, for me, in that case, the best I can track it, when I'm not being heard, I'm not being valued. And if I'm not being valued, then I can easily be walked away from. So abandonment, that comes up, right? That one drives deep into very young experiences in my life. And I think rejection is another one, right? Rejection is a little different than abandonment, but they're closely related, I believe. So this is underneath that for me. The feeling of not being heard equates to easier to reject. And this can, one of the coping mechanisms can be to Be a person who really strongly values information, right? You start to collect information. You want to be the one who knows everything, who knows everyone, who knows all of the information about anything that's happening. So this becomes a crisis response. And we get really good at crisis because crisis allows us to have extraordinary behaviors for extraordinary circumstances. It's absolutely acceptable to be a nervous, anxious, uh, confusing, loud mess during a crisis, as long as you're helping. And if you have the information, you're the helper. So it's just interesting when you start really following the pathways of how these earliest experiences start to inform and continue to inform our behaviors through our life, right? It moves us through all of these places. And so that fear of abandonment comes from a time of being abandoned, and then you carry that with you into all of your relationships, and you don't even realize that's what you're doing. You just think, this is how I am, and this is because this is how I am, this is how I expect you to be. So now I have secret expectations and demands that are probably unreasonable and unfair to place upon another person for how I am going to relate to you. And then we have a lifetime of that, and then we defend that. So the insecurity, this is the neon light. This is the vacancy sign, right? No vacancy, no vacancy. It's letting us know there's no more room here. You need to empty out some of what you're carrying because you don't have any capacity left. And then you check the breath. Am I letting go? Just as simple as that. Try that. If you're listening right now, just without even thinking about what it is you need to let go of necessarily, just breathe out entirely from your mouth. Get all the air out. Now feel. And breathe in. And again, let it all out. Spending that moment after you let all the air out, before you breathe in again, to just feel what it is that's happening on a level of sensation in your body. What's the sensation? What is the... You feel this movement in your chest. You feel this emptiness in the body. You feel this straining of the muscles. Now, when you start to just feel the sensations, no attachment to what they might mean, see if you can find the word that describes succinctly what that entire group of feelings in your body are. Maybe the word is content. Maybe the word is anxious. I don't know. It's going to be different all the time, but just begin with that exhale. And this is where the practice comes in. And one of the most important components of the practice of the Buddhist teachings, of the Buddhist practices, and this is pretty much across the board with most lineages of Buddhism, compassion. Compassion is a key component. It's something that you meditate upon. It's something that you try to work on and bring into your life. It's something that you develop a relationship with yourself as the other inside of yourself. This like split of who we think we are and who we really are, who is the thinker, who is having the thoughts, all of these different things. We develop compassion for those relationships inside of ourselves. And the word compassion means to share suffering. the sharing of suffering. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you share the same suffering, that you can only have compassion for people that, have abandonment issues, or you can only have compassion for people who struggle with uh, dietary habits or substance use or sex addiction. Compassion means to share that, in that both of you suffer. We both share that we both suffer. I recognize that you suffer. I recognize that I suffer. It may look different. It may present itself differently. It may appear differently to you than it does to me. But without judgment and hierarchy of importance of suffering, just the knowledge, the deep knowledge that we all suffer, that's the beginnings of compassion. It's the beginnings. It can open you up to this deeper level of relationship. And that practice of compassion is going to go a long way when you start figuring out that an argument over electronic music versus hand drums is deeply rooted in your insecurity and fear of abandonment. Mind blown, right? Completely mind blown. And you're going to need some compassion for that. You're going to need a little reserve of compassion you can tap into for yourself and for the teenager that you're arguing with. Okay. Well, I think I would like to just take a few moments of getting into a practice together. I was experiencing some of these benefits of a shared practice last night. I teach or facilitate a meditation class at a fitness center in Southern Oregon every Tuesday night. And last night there were a decent amount of students who, some I knew, some was meeting for the first time. And it happens often that when we sit in a room with people, whether they're familiar or strangers to us, and we sit in silence and we breathe with intention and we share that meditative space, that there becomes a thread of connection, like an almost visible thread that ties my heart to each person in the room. And then you can see a web forming from the hearts connecting all across. And then as you sit, over time in that practice, you can feel that web connecting to people outside of the room, and then people outside of the building, and then people outside of the neighborhood, outside of the city, outside of the mountain. All across, you start to find these threads of connection. And some mornings sitting here, that becomes pretty clear to me as well. So today's practice is going to be to visualize that thread. So we'll begin just by understanding that this practice is a devotional practice to breathing. That's all it is. We're just adjusting our body in a way that allows us to bring the focus into the breath. So you may be seated, as I am, in a chair with your feet flat to the floor, or have your legs crossed in any number of positions, or possibly lying on your back, or even standing, walking with headphones. Wherever you are right now, become aware of the breath. One full breath in and out with full awareness is one of the greatest gifts that I know. Opening up our heart and our bodies to receive breath, and trusting our bodies to let it go. Breathing in through the nose, allowing the belly to fill. Breathing out through the mouth, feeling the body contract, moving the breath out. Allow your eyes to close. Straightening the back, the spine, letting the shoulders drop, letting the ribs open and close as you receive breath and release breath. Start to imagine that your chest is open and your heart is being filled with air. As you breathe in, just growing, your heart is growing. And picture the heart releasing. And as you release, that thread of love and energy and existence starts to move outward from your heart, maybe it's moving towards the closest person to you, or someone that's easiest for you to love. Picture that thread connecting to that person's heart. And then picture it adding to another person that you love, who is easy to love. Just connect to their heart. And another. And continue connecting to the hearts of those who are easy to love. And then feel your heart connecting to those who are difficult for you to love. Just feel your hearts connecting. No definitions, no thoughts, no identities. Only that you have a desire to connect. Just connect. Feel your heart connecting to all of the people you do not yet know. Notice any sensations in your chest and in your heart space. Notice how you might begin to feel a little strained, like your muscles are being used. Just relax yourself as you breathe in and out and witness this beautiful connection to all beings. All beings. And this web that you have woven with the threads of your heart to all beings is a safety net. This is where you are being held. Let this net be your security. To know that when you are experiencing insecurity in your mind, that your heart is not. And then move into this feeling. Thank you all for being here this morning. Take your time moving out of this practice. Take a little inventory. Allow yourself to really feel all of the feelings that might come up for you. It's a beautiful day. And what a perfect time to begin. So thanks for joining this morning with Journey Home Meditation for the Morning Sit. I'm Michael. You can reach me at journeyhomemeditation@gmail.com or through any of the social media platforms that we broadcast this morning practice through. You can leave comments on the YouTube or the Facebook videos or Twitch. You can like, share, review, and comment on the audio broadcast that gets loaded onto Spotify and Audible and Amazon Music and I think a few other places. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking time to share this practice with me, and I would love to hear from you. I'd love to share some conversations about how your practice is going and what you are learning about yourself. And maybe we can get you to share that with others on this platform. That the antidote for insecurity is vulnerability. Go figure. How does that work? I don't know, but it does. I'm going with it. All right, thanks, y'all. Hariom.